Stayed with the kids for a while because I needed her to be there with him. Okay. Amy Roloff used to be the happy face of one of the most popular television shows in the US. The world saw happiness, love, and life on the farm, but Amy was going through something much worse behind the scenes. What started out as a dream life turned into a quiet tragedy over time. One full of betrayal, heartbreak, and pain that can't be spoken. Thoughts and feelings behind the farm and what's happened. She carried the weight by herself for years until pieces of the truth came to light. This shows the sad secret story of Amy Roloff from Little People, whose life fell apart in front of millions of people. A fairy tale set in the real world. The first episode of Little People, Big World aired on TV in 2006. It wasn't just another TV show. It gave us a look into a world we don't often see. Living with dwarfism, Amy and Matt Roloff were more than just the subjects of a documentary. As they dealt with the ups and downs of life on their huge Oregon farm, they were among the first people to use representation. From the outside, their lives looked like a warm mix of fun, hard work, and touching family moments. The farm itself was a character. It was a beautiful setting that stood for hard work, love, and the strong American spirit. But there was an unspoken tension beneath the happy scenes and staged warmth. Amy, who was bright and strong, was slowly pushed aside, not by a direct force but by the subtle ways that stories are told and things are made. The cameras loved Matt's larger-than-life personality, his sense of humor, and his ability to lead with clarity. Amy, who was usually more quiet, was given a supporting part. Kind, caring, and the heart of the family, but not usually the one telling the story. Amy was having a fight with herself that not many people saw. People's expectations started to make her less like the person she was: independent, thoughtful, and very smart. Because of the constant editing and the need for familiar storylines, her complexity was often sanded down so that a lot of people could enjoy her work. Her feelings and ideas, especially those that didn't fit with the happy script, were cut out or pushed to the background. Fame made people see you, but it cost you something. Personal boundaries being broken down and her inner self slowly going away. Amy's personality was no longer just her own. It turned into a public property thanks to makers, fans, and people's never-ending need for reality TV drama. They were no longer just living on the farm. It was a stage. Amy was in a play that she hadn't fully written yet. Millions of people cheered for her, but she was quietly upset that she had lost control of her own story. The base has cracks. People often say that marriage is like a live thing. Changing, breathing, and sometimes breaking. The breaks for Matt and Amy didn't come with a storm. They got in by whispering. It didn't break violently. Instead, it came apart slowly. Their days, which used to be filled with shared hopes and dreams, turned into a string of mirrored lives. The things that brought partners together, like coffee in the morning, dinners together, and quiet talks, started to fade away. Instead of making plans for the future, they had to figure out how to live in the present as strangers sharing a house. The show's stress and the farm's need for constant care added to the stress. But there was more to the gap than that. Emotional disregard that neither of them seemed ready to fully face. Amy later thought about the void in a very honest way. We didn't have a plan for how to stay in touch. We just sailed away. It wasn't a sudden shift. It was a buildup of missed chances and quiet failures. Matt became more and more in charge of the farm, the kids, and even their public identities. Amy, who used to be an equal partner, found that her situation and expectations made it hard for her to speak up. What broke my heart about the distance was that I couldn't see it. On camera they looked like a team, showing that they were strong and worked together. Behind the scenes the gulf grew bigger, full of anger and unmet needs that were not spoken. Amy wasn't just physically lonely, it was a deep sense of mental isolation. And as the walls came down, someone else moved into the places where Matt's attention used to be. A new relationship and dynamic were slowly taking shape. Amy would finally feel it, but she would not be able to stop it. The slow end of their marriage was no longer just a private pain for them. It was coming apart in full view. The screaming silence. The world of Amy Roloff slowly started to fall apart. There weren't any loud arguments or fights, but there were quiet times between words and body language. It was in the little, seemingly unimportant times that the pain was the greatest. Her thoughts about the farm used to be welcomed and even praised, but now they were met with polite nods or worse, no response at all. When she suggested that they add pumpkin salsa to their farm store, Matt laughed it off at first, but then he took credit when it became a surprise hit. She would not know about meetings about the family business. Choice made in secret behind closed doors. She was no longer invited to talk about the farm's future. They had a dream together, but she was no longer a part of it. Her emotional needs stopped being seen. When she tried to find warmth or connection, people were cold and uninterested. It was more than just carelessness. It was like she was slowly going away. The man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with seemed to be dying inside, not physically. He was only a ghost of the partner she used to know. Matt went from being a co-creator and confidant to a distant executive who put business first when handling the farm's legacy. The balance of power swung, and every day that went by, Amy felt the cold edge of being left out bite deeper. There wasn't a personality problem. She couldn't do anything in her own life because of the quiet takeover. A lot of the time I felt alone even when I wasn't. Amy would think about it later. This time of loneliness was different. Not rooted in absence but in closeness without being there. It hurt to live next to someone who didn't see you anymore, and whose mind was on something else. Any disagreement they had would have been drowned out by the silence between them. A gap is opening up where love used to grow. But Amy didn't say anything for a long time. She hoped against all odds that this cold season would only last a short time. Matt would remember the promise, the union, and the hopes. But the silence got worse as the days turned into months and then into years. There was a weight on her spirit that made her feel like the quiet woman she was inside might fall apart. Betrayal going on in the background. Karen Chandler was the background of this relationship that was falling apart. Her name would soon be heard in every mumbled word and uneasy heart in Roloff Farms. Karen wasn't just another worker. She was very important to the farm's operations because she ran the crazy but fun pumpkin season events, talked to guests, and kept the business's public face up. It was like the change of the seasons when she was around. Amy thought of it as part of the farm's extended family for years. Karen's friendship with Matt changed over time, though, and she took with her the fragile balance of Amy's life. Karen went from being a co-worker to a confidant, and her role grew beyond work to include things Matt used to only do with Amy in secret. She went to meetings when Amy wasn't there. She shared meals, talks, and quiet times that Amy used to hold very dear. It was clear that Matt and Karen were attracted to each other. There was a stream below the surface that could be felt and couldn't be denied. Their laughing made them feel closer to each other. Through their looks they seemed to know each other. There was a charge in the air whenever they were close that Amy couldn't ignore. Even though she didn't have any solid proof, just pieces of a painful puzzle. The constant appearance of the cameras made Amy's pain even worse. Roloff Farms was more than just a house or a business. It was on TV, so every flaw was shown to the public in a big way. Amy watched as her life and marriage fell apart in front of the cameras. She had to fake a smile and hide her pain for viewers who wanted to see happy family times. Amy was honest about the truth in her autobiography, A Little Me. I think Karen became more than just a friend when they started working together more. This is just my view. It hurt more because it wasn't just one act, it was a slow invasion of her privacy, trust, and pride. It was living in a world of gossip, whispers, and unanswered questions, feeling alone in a world full of people watching. The cameras never stopped rolling though. The show went on with or without her. Amy's broken heart wasn't just happening in her private life. It happened in full view of the cameras the whole time. Every tiny tremor in her voice and every tear that was just barely hidden. Millions of people saw every fake smile because it was carefully recorded and shared. The cameras didn't go away when she was sad. There was no room for her to breathe or heal on set. Instead, her pain was used as a showpiece and as a plot point in the continued story of Little People, Big World. Amy was the picture of strength on TV. She was tough as steel, quick with a joke, steady in her look, and measured in what she said. But behind the scenes a lot of mental pain was happening. Being in the same house as Matt, her partner, who became stranger while she thought the unthinkable about Karen Chandler, was a psychic hell. After the fact, Amy wrote, "I know I should have said something right away, but I didn't. I was scared and embarrassed that something even remotely like this could be happening. Was Matt really interested in someone else right in front of me? Why would he even go there while we were still married?" The farm, which had been a safe place, turned into a battleground every day where there was little joy and a lot of tension. Every fall and winter event, from pumpkin patches to holiday parties, felt like walking through a minefield. Each gathering, carefully planned to be watched, hid the deeper cracks that were starting to show. Family meetings and decisions, which used to be a time for working together and hope, turned into stark reminders of Amy's decreasing impact, not only on the farm's direction but also on the life she thought she shared with her family. The producers of the show kept making the story look good by cutting out the rough edges of Amy's pain. The public saw a calm and collected Amy, but that was just a mask. Inside, the silence was deafening, and the feeling of not being seen was suffocating. Losing Matt wasn't the real tragedy. It meant she was losing her independence and having her story changed without her permission. When the papers came, the delicate balance was broken in 2015. Amy and Matt's separation, which had been talked about in whispers, became official. The divorce was finalized the next year, with the legal papers laying out what had been felt in every heartbeat and voiced argument. On paper, the divorce seemed friendly and a mutual parting of ways, but beneath the empty words was a deep spiritual collapse. For Amy, the farm wasn't just land or a business, it was who she was. It was where she had spent her childhood, and where her family's story had been told through dirt paths and worn-out wooden fences. It was where she cooked meals that would last for generations. It was where laughter used to reverberate through the fields and love felt like it would last forever. To leave was to cut herself off from the very roots that had raised her. The departure was quiet and solemn, with no dramatic confrontations or tabloid frenzy. It was just a woman reclaiming her dignity in the ruins of what she once thought would last forever. With each box she packed, she said goodbye to a life she had worked hard to build and that would never be the same again. Her leaving was more than just a move. It was a profound mourning when she said goodbye to more than just a home. It was the end of a dream. And while the cameras caught the details of her move, they could never fully understand the depth of her loss. The end of a chapter in her life that had defined who she was. It was humiliation in plain sight. After the divorce, there was more than just a legal separation. Matt's relationship with Karen Chandler came out of the shadows and into the bright light, revealing everything Amy had secretly feared and thought. What had been whispered doubts, quiet suspicions, and hidden wounds became undeniable fact all of a sudden. The situation changed dramatically. Karen, who had been an employee running farm events and a familiar but not very important presence, was now in the spotlight, and clearly Matt's new partner. Their relationship wasn't secret or talked about behind closed doors. It was out in the open, with no apologies and impossible to ignore. For Amy, this wasn't just a story about a romantic betrayal. It was a harsh lesson in humiliation played out on stage for millions of people to see. More than the personal pain, it was the surreal and painful reality of living together. Even though their relationships were broken and their emotions were raw, Amy and Matt had to keep running Roloff Farms together, a huge family business that had become a big part of their public image. It wasn't just about splitting up assets or ending the marriage. It was also about figuring out how to live with someone who was now a part of Matt's life and still co-parenting their grown children. The emotional tension got worse while filming episodes for Little People, Big World. Cameras that used to record family celebrations and simple joys now saw an awkward coexistence rife with pain, anger, and unresolved grief. Every look and word held meaning, sometimes spoken and often unspoken. People, whether they knew it or not, watched the raw human drama unfold while Amy felt the unbearable weight of being looked at by everyone. Amy talked about it in a video she recorded on March 31st. When you know you have issues and you know you have problems, whether they're on your side or another side, I think when you start looking before you're separated from your spouse, that is hard. My point is that when you become more than just a friend, when you start a relationship that's more than just hey hi friend, let's go out for coffee, I think that can be hard on the other person too.
What made this heartbreak so painful was that it wasn't because of anger or jealousy. Amy fought for her honor and respect. I think that's what happened with me. We had someone work for us on our farm for a very, very long time, and I think there was more going on than just friends. I think that grew to the point where it hurt our marriage as well. Betrayal happened both in private and in public, but it was never officially called what it was. Instead, the broken family life was shown as a normal part of a weird or complicated reality TV show. Amy was called difficult or emotional, which made her real pain seem less important and made her the bad guy in a story she didn't agree to. Around the holidays at farm events, and during family discussions, Amy had to show how strong and calm she was under pressure. Behind the camera, she struggled with feelings of not being seen, anger and sadness. Millions of viewers saw the calm woman and supportive mother on the outside, but few could understand the silent grief that lay beneath. When Amy was in a love triangle without consent or closure, her grief was made worse by the confession she hid. It took her years to find a way to tell the truth, not in shocking headlines or tense interviews, but in the quiet, thoughtful pages of her memoir, A Little Me. Unlike the dramatic exposes that are common in celebrity divorces, Amy's book was an honest reckoning. She wasn't trying to find someone to blame, she was trying to get her voice back. In the book, Amy revealed layers of pain and confusion that had been hidden from the public for a long time. She faced the complicated feelings of betrayal, including the self-doubt and misplaced trust she had been struggling with for years. The pages showed Amy's weak spots, like when she doubted her own judgment, missed warning signs and desperately held on to a family picture that wasn't real anymore. "I didn't know who I was outside of that marriage," she said with a quiet sigh. That sentence said a lot about Amy. Her identity had become so tangled up with her roles as wife, mother and co-manager of the farm, that she had lost sight of herself as a person. Amy didn't instantly find her own worth and purpose. It took her a long time, and a lot of pain to learn how to stand on her own. Her memoir also showed the invisible wounds caused by silence. This is the kind of silence that comes not from not having words, but from choosing to endure pain for the sake of others. Amy had carried the weight of family loyalty and public expectation for too long, giving up her own healing to protect a fragile peace. The silence she forced herself to keep became its own form of pain, a shadow that followed her even after the divorce was finalized. What made A Little Me so powerful wasn't the scandalous details of cheating or the public drama, but Amy's honest admission of her regrets. It wasn't Matt or Karen who suffered the most painful revelations. It was Amy herself who had to accept a painful reality, forgive herself for staying longer than she should have, and resolve to find new meaning beyond the pain. The book wasn't a sign of defeat, but of strength. It was Amy's way of taking back her story on her own terms. It turned heartbreak into strength, silence into voice, and loss into the start of a new chapter. That's when everything changed. The revelation didn't come out of nowhere like a thunderclap. It happened slowly, like everything Amy thought she knew was falling apart. There was no fighting or yelling. There was a serious unseen crack in her world that made it impossible for her to live. Matt never told her the truth outright, but she didn't need to. The signs had been there the whole time. The late nights away from the farm, the whispered phone calls and the growing distance between them. The closeness with Karen Chandler, the timing of events, and the small changes in behavior made it too clear to ignore. For Amy, what came was not justice, but clarity, a bitter, painful clarity that showed a life built around illusions: the perfect family farm, the loving husband, and the warm partnership on screen. All of her illusions were slowly peeled away by the relentless weight of reality. This wasn't the heartbreak of a single betrayal. It was the toll of years of feeling invisible in her own marriage, left out of decisions she thought she had an equal say in, and having her ideas, feelings, and very presence ignored. This was the steady loss of trust that happened behind smiles and cameras rolling. "It's not that I'm sad that Matt has found someone," Amy said as she thought about how she felt. "I believe it's more about how it changed over time, how it started, and how it happened. I believe that's what hurt, and the way the show was cut may have made me seem a little more bitter and angry. It was tough, I'll be honest, it was hard. For me it was a process, and that's when Amy felt the last crack in herself. That's when she saw it all clearly. It was the end of a dream, and the breaking of a carefully built personality. She became aware that she was not the woman she thought she was married to or the person everyone else thought she was. She left her husband, but she also left a part of herself that had been ignored and pushed to the side for too long. Going forward was risky, and would cause a lot of pain. That was the first step toward getting back the life that had been taken away from her. She decided to live through the heartbreak. Amy Roloff's story doesn't end with a broken heart. Instead, it grows in the middle of them. After her marriage fell apart in front of millions of people, she had to make a choice that few people could imagine being so gracefully made. It would have been easy for her to give up because of the constant flash of the cameras, the whispers behind every smile, and the opinions from everyone.